Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the FlyWoo FlyLens, not V2 as they're calling it, version 1.3. Not designed to fly that way, but sure good for durability testing. I have both the original as well as the new version 1.3. We'll go over the differences or the changes after the flights. Featuring FlyWoo's Robo 1003 14,800 kV motors. And on those motors are the 1609 4-bladed 40mm 1.5mm shaft props. The flight controller is now the Goku F405 HD. It's 1 to 2S with Express LRS on board, and the Express LRS version that mine came with is 3.3. Note, there's no motor connectors, just a connector for your HD video. And speaking of HD video, this time I put in a light unit. As you can see, my camera is relatively naked up here. Mine comes in at 69.5 grams with the largest battery, but doesn't necessarily give you the longest flight time, 750 milliamp from FlyWoo. It weighs 105 grams. I found I got about 10 seconds more flight time than the 750 with this 720, which brings the weight up to 106.5 grams, so that makes sense. The red and green labeled G&B 550s performance are pretty similar, but if you're flying it fast, like I was inside, I recommend the red label, but the green is pretty close if you can get your hands on one over the other. With the red label G&B 550, it weighs 98 and, well, just a touch over grams. With the green label, it weighs 98.5 grams. And last but not least, with the FlyWoo branded 550, it weighs 95.5 grams. And motor post to motor post, I'm getting closer to 81 millimeters than 75. Carbon fiber looks to be 2.5 millimeters thick. It comes with 3 different battery trays. You get the 1000 milliamp, which I don't have a 1000 milliamp 2S battery, so I didn't test that. Of course, we've got the 750 next to it, and on the quad, we've got the 550. These are twist lock mounts. You press them down, and you turn them. It does come with this camera lens protector, which I have on here for my faster durability flights. Comes with an extra sponge pad for the bottom, as well as all these different screws, nuts, and whatnot. If you missed it, it does come with an extra set of props. It also comes with a fairly unique USB-C cable to connect to your O3 as well as your flight controller, but it really won't work with your flight controller unless you take the battery connector off. That way you can go this away. Comes with a card on your flight controller, port card, as well as a tutorial how to change a PID profile in case you're going to fly that larger battery. You do also get an assembly guide. Mine came with 2 sheets of stickers. Jumping into our slow, flat, cruisy flight. This is the design intent for this particular quad. You know, it's got the vibration dampening for that camera plate, which they did change a little bit, and we can take a finer look at that at the back at the desk. I'm currently flying it with the 750 from FlyWoo, which, as I said, I get about 4.5 minutes of flight on that, but I've only got the one 750 from FlyWoo to test, so that battery could be an outlier one way or another. On the 720, I routinely, because I have more of them, I can test more of them, got 4 minutes and 40 seconds, so I got more flight time, and therefore the weight was actually more with the 720 over the 750. I suspect the FlyWoo batteries are rebranded batteries of some sort. The 550 slow cruisy flight, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. That is the red labeled one. The green labeled one came in pretty close to that, within 5 or 10 seconds. Less, that is, not more, less, but pretty close. And the FlyWoo 550 came in at about 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So the green label 550 and the FlyWoo 550 came in about the same. I had more of the FlyWoo 550s to test, so I have a better basis for that number than I do the 750 from FlyWoo. The temperature is 77 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind is 4 miles an hour, which is, again, one of those lucky times. This was actually the same day I flew the last quad that I had on the channel that I reviewed, because it was super low wind, so I had to take advantage of that. This is the 4K unadulterated, no Betaflight OSD information, but here in a few seconds we'll be switching over to the goggle view. So the VTX recording, which we're looking at in the 4K, it has stabilization, Rocksteady built in, and now we've switched over to the DVR view, which this does not have stabilization built in. So you'll be able to see any possible differences. Of course, the same flight, same day. That's why it's synced up, nearly seamlessly there. The flight audio that you've already heard comes on a secondary camera that is sitting next to me on the table. Whether I'm inside or outside, it's always sitting within about arm's reach. So that's where the flight audio comes from. I still get that question about once every video. So hopefully that answers that question for the 1 or 2 people who might have it this time around. This time I went with, I happened to have, because I had to put my own in, a FlyWoo Naked 03, or a Light Ultra, I think they might even call it. And on that descent, you see a little bit of movement there. That generally gets pretty well stabilized out with the Rocksteady or EIS on the VTX recording, but in the goggles, you do see it. It's about 3 minutes of that flight. We don't need to see every minute of this flight. Let's move along. As we sit here on the table, look at the trees moving around. This is another slow one. I wanted to give you a sample of how it flies with the 4K gyro stabilized footage, the onboard footage, and higher winds. This is 15 to 21 miles an hour. Of course, that's a wind measurement by weather stations. We're in town, we've got full leaves on trees, we've got houses knocking down some of that wind, and so we're not feeling all of that. But again, same environment versus the 4-mile-an-hour wind day that I showed you, but this one is 15 to 21 miles an hour. We really didn't have any gusts on that 4-mile-an-hour winds. I think the gust was actually up to about 4 miles an hour. So I wanted to give you another view of how this flies, slow, cinematic style, in that sort of wind. What was the temperature this day? 79 degrees. So the other day was 77 degrees. This one was 79. See a little bit of water on top of the pool cover. Unfortunately, our pool cover has a hole in it, so that allows water from the pool to seep up top. And they patched it once, so I'm not sure what they're going to do. They've got to be some sort of warranty for that, because that thing was terrible expensive, and it was one of my mandates that we have an auto cover on our pool. I wasn't going to allow us to have a pool that didn't have an auto cover, so whenever we're not using it, it is covered, or cleaning it too. But I wanted to show you this, give you another different slow flight sample in much different environment with the wind. And this, again, we've jumped into the DVR or the goggle view that doesn't have the stabilized footage here, and we're going to fly around here for another 20 or so seconds so that you can get a fix. The wind does affect it. There's no two ways about that. It's a 75 millimeter. It comes in at under 100 grams. Let's move ahead again to a faster, more aggressive flight. Okay, weather data, 80 degrees on this particular day, and the winds, again, 15 to 21 miles an hour. I think this is the same day as the earlier flight. It's just later in the day. This time of year, it tends to warm up as you get closer to 5 o'clock. I think this is actually after 5 o'clock, maybe closer to 6 o'clock. I didn't note the time on my notes here. This is not how it's intended to be flown, but I always do this sort of stuff, so if you're not looking for cinematic sort of quads, but you want this quad for the prop protection, the size, what have you, how does it fly if you're not flying it around how it's intended to fly? You'll see that it doesn't do the technique, again, on recoveries from when you're going up high and you're nosing down and coming around and you're catching. There's a couple times I get it pretty decent. You really got to feather the throttle up or bring it up slowly and moderately. You can't wait till you kind of clear your object. It's one of the limitations when you're flying at this weight with this prop size, that it doesn't catch great. It'll kind of jitter or flutter. In the top right and top left hand corner, that is the shadow or the mirror from the lens protector that I didn't get all the way on. I don't have the 3D printed lens or camera protection on here, just that lens cover that comes with the Naked 03s from FlyWoo. I can show you that back at the desk, but apparently I didn't get it seated all the way, so we've got a little bit of that mirroring effect in the top right and the top left hand corner. But this flight's only going to come in about another 45 seconds and around 2 minutes and 35 seconds, I believe, this particular flight. And flying fairly aggressively, I am using the red labeled 550 G&B battery, so that gives you an idea. You can use other batteries, and I have some R-Line from Tattoo 550s, but I'm not certain they're going to fit in the 3D print, and if they do fit, is it going to stretch the print out to where smaller or less chunky 550 batteries will, be held firmly by that. So that's something that I didn't do. I didn't stretch it out or potentially stretch it out with the Tattoo 550. You saw that last maneuver on the tree there. It actually, I was able to kind of feather the throttle up on my catch, and it was much smoother on the catcher coming down. We're going to end this flight. I think I got it right. Yeah, 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Oh, 2:36. So close, so close. And our battery is coming in above 3.5 volts per cell, which is what I want. This was actually just this morning. I woke up kind of early, and I was surprised to find that the winds were so low. Weather data does say 4 miles an hour, but it felt, I couldn't feel a breeze on my skin, and I thought, well, I should just go for a little fly. I was actually working on we had a major storm. You can probably see some tree debris out on the lawn. I had been picking up some of that stuff and working on getting the water off the top of the pool. You'll probably notice the pump in the pool and pumping water off of that. Because I don't leave it in overnight because of that hole. It'll just end up draining all the pool water out into the lawn. But it was so nice and calm. I just thought I would go for a fly while I was out there waiting. And I figured I could share it because there might be some value there. This is probably about as cinematic a flight as I'm going to get with the sun just coming up over the trees. So you get some of that sun flare as you're flying through the area. And it's nice and quiet, too. Normally, our neighborhood has got some sort of activity going on, whether it's trucks up on the road that's not far from the house, or you've got lawn care going on, or maybe construction. There's generally always some noise in the neighborhood, and it was especially quiet. So this is kind of nice. Okay, and last but not least is our slow cinematic indoor flight, or I shouldn't say cinematic because it's just inside my house, but this is more closer to what the design intent of this was. Some people really like to shoot small gaps with this, and that is a possibility. I actually spent a little bit of time going through the stools. The lower section is much more manageable for me of the stools by the kitchen island, but I was trying to go through the section just above those, and that is much more small and difficult, and so I banged it around quite a bit. Plus, as you can imagine, with that initial sort of flight teaser that I had at the very beginning of the video, I like to go fast, pod racing, Star Wars style. So that's kind of what I do, and that gives me an opportunity to test the durability. This particular time, I had myself 4 batteries, and I flew those 4 batteries until I was getting the land now, which was, when you're on the throttle pretty hard, it'll recover above the minimum voltage, the 3.5 volts per cell that I like to shoot for. But this particular flight, it was just, as it's intended, if you want to fly around the inside of your home or some other home. Smaller quads are going to give you more margin for error. It may be the right tool for your toolbox and a particular job. I don't know. I'm hearing from professional cinematographers that, no, you can't just use the DJI 03 and sell it to your footage to whoever your contract is with. That you've got to have at least GoPro quality. So maybe it's more amateur line, but I don't do that work. I don't really talk to those people a lot. It's just various postings that I've seen, comments that I've gotten on the channel, things like that. So I can't necessarily validate it. But that's kind of the word that I've been hearing, is that you've got to have at least GoPro footage. In this particular case with this quad, it does not come with a mount that you could mount any external HD camera. You're limited to whatever you've got in the quad. And speaking of whatever you've got in the quad, FlyWoo is one of the few companies that also offers this in walk snail, HD0, and analog. So you've got the full gamut of video options available if this is the sort of quad that you're looking for. I would say if you're looking at analog, just go with a traditional whoop. A traditional analog whoop. You're going to be much more durable, in my opinion, and you're going to be probably having more fun. because it's going to continue to run, and it won't be as heavy as this would be. But, you know, each their own. I'm just trying to give you some advice. So the mirroring effect in that slow cinematic flight, one of them that I was talking about, this was the bit that I was talking about. It's just a camera or lens protector, and I just didn't have it seated all the way on the lens. So we were getting a little bit of that mirroring effect in the top right and top left-hand corner. So that's what that was. So one of the things that they changed was the flight controller. The flight controller now is USB. Of course, it's got our connector right over here for our HD video system. Mine does not have the antenna for Express LRS connected, but it's got a micro UFL right here, and then we've got a button right next to it. It's really hard to see these, so let me zoom in so you can see everything that's silk screened on here. So hopefully that helps with being able to see everything on the silk screen. Of course, you can go to the FlyWoo website and look at this individual device, and it'll have a much bigger print that you can look at all the different silk screen and the recommended devices and how you connect this. One of the things they tout is they put a 9-volt regulator on this for HD video purposes, which will help keep those 03 units running when the battery voltage gets below 9 volts on the quad. So if you're running aggressively, you don't have brownout issues with your camera in VX. And here is a look at the, well, I guess it would technically be the top side, wouldn't it? And this antenna, this little line right up here in the corner, that's your Wi-Fi for your Express LRS. Okay, so interestingly, they talk about how they made the motor mounting patterns more compatible with 9mm motors, but it looks the same on both versions to me. So I don't see where that's coming to play on this. Of course, the old one, the original, I shouldn't say old, it wasn't that old, had the micro USB, and you can see it was an all black flight controller. So that's a touch different in the particular case from the original to the secondary version. The camera mounting has changed a little bit. I don't know how well you can see this. Originally, they had a top and a bottom section to the camera mounting, and now they only have a bottom. I don't know if that's better or worse. It's hard for me to say. And I was a little bit curious because when I went naked, I couldn't get a lot of camera angle. It was plenty to be able to fly it fast inside the house. It was challenging as all get out. But this is the maximum camera angle that I could get on mine because the bracket on the back is hitting the metal back here. So, and I wasn't worried about getting my vibration dampening when I was doing that faster flight. I was just trying to maximize the camera angle. They also talk about this mount at the bottom on how they've changed the materials and made it more durable. I haven't had any problems. Matter of fact, I somewhat regularly when I fly DJI outside, I grab the FlyLens 85 and fly that around, and it has the same original battery tray. I still haven't had any problems, but maybe other folks out there have. You can see in my original, I had the full DJI 03 air unit, and here we've got this naked. One thing that I do note about this naked one is that if you go back-to-back flights, especially if it's outside in high 70s, low 80s temperature, that I usually had to wait a few minutes between flights in order to keep this from overheating this way. So that's kind of the downside, especially as we get deeper into summer here in the northern hemisphere and it gets warmer if you live in a warm place. That may be a barrier. Is something to keep in mind is that these don't cool as well as these. And speaking of that durability, I actually broke this piece right here. You can see how it kind of broke off the front here. And that happened during those speed runs that I was making, and that's one of the durability testing. Also, my naked is kind of sitting cattywampus. So there's a bracket that runs, let's see, I'll try to get this right. Yeah. So I've got the bracket on this side. You can see this black piece right here. But on this side, there's another bracket that's supposed to be down there. I was having a heck of a time getting it, and I thought, well, all that bracket does is hold our antennas down, our UFLs to our antennas, so I don't really need that because I've got this whole assembly holding those down. So after fussing with it for a while and struggling not getting it in, I decided I'm just going to skip it, and that's what I did. That's why it sits a little bit cattywampus, and I think if this edge were up and it had that rail on it, that our USB-C port might be available. I think that was actually a struggle on the original as well. You could see the USB-C port right there. So it's designed around the full 03. Of course, like I said, they offer this in walk snail, HD0, and analog as well. But breaking this piece, that was the only breakage I have. You can even see my props aren't terrible for the wear on these. They're a little bit turned up on the edge of the, like I've got a little bit of a turned up edge here, and I thought I saw one over here as well. but everything else held together with all those different crashes that I had in the house doing those speed runs. That's the main reason I do that, is it helps me. Well, it's fun for one, and if I have crashes, it's organic and then gives me a little bit of a measurement for how durable these things are. So that was, I put this on, but I don't know. It would have helped if I'd have hit anything head on. Maybe it did help and I just don't know it. But that was the one piece of protection that I didn't have on in all the other flights that I did have in that speed run. One tip that I think I can give you about assembling this, see that gold bracket right there? It's kind of a Y shape. So I took the MIPI cable from the camera and ran it right through that Y to make sure I kept it out of the prop line, because that Y that's built in right down there, you can't hardly see it, but that gold piece, that really helps us when it gets to putting our MIPI cable, giving it a nice clean route. And then there is a little 3D printed trap. There's actually 2 holsters on this side of the flight controller that you can then route things into. And that's what I did when I put mine together. It's a little bit tedious process, but you know, they do build those things in for us, and that's what I tried to follow what I thought was the intent when it comes to our wire pathing. Of course, these are our 2 antennas for our 03, and this is our antenna for our Express RS. Just comes out back here. It did fine. So if you're considering the FlyLens 75 and you don't necessarily have plans on flying in your house, I highly, highly recommend the FlyLens 85. This is one that I enjoy flying quite a bit. And for one that's prop guarded or prop protected, I still got nice, clean, smooth, flat footage, but it flies aerobatically, aggressively, much, much better. Larger prop size are going to do that, but it's still small. So that has an appeal, at least to me. I really like the 2-inch size, especially 2-inch 2S. I wish they would make one like this without the prop protection as well. We've seen that from a few other companies. I don't think we've seen one like that from FlyWoo, though. Maybe that's something they've got coming to us. FlyWoo also sent a nice little GoPro box, the naked GoPro. You might remember I had that on the channel. I'm trying not to drop everything out of here, but it's got some nice little slots in here for everything you might need for your naked GoPro. It's a hardy little box. It is a print. I'm sure if you have a printer and you have the tuned up printer, that you could print one yourself just as well. But I'm going to keep mine in here. That is the FlyLens 75 version 1.3. Kind of an odd name on that. Again, mine is with the naked 03 or light or ultra light. Bare bones light. You can get it in walk snail, HD0, as well as analog. But again, I think if you're looking at this for analog, just buy a 75mm Whoop. Yeah, I think that's the right thing. And as I already recommended, I really like this one. I fly this one a lot more. I've got 2 of these now, and this one has seen a lot more flights. And if anybody who's got any of these, have you broken these trays? That's, I found it very curious. I didn't even put the foam pad that they sent on this one, and I still fly it and I land on the concrete, but I don't crash land too often on the concrete. But I was really surprised that they mentioned that they changed the materials on this little compartment area in order to increase its durability, because I haven't had any troubles with it. Obviously with this one on the speed running, I broke that one duct or line on it, but everything else is held together fine. Have you broken yours? And if you're running the DJI system, has your DJI VTX or Cube run into any damage because of it? I would certainly like to know. That's something that, again, I thought was a little bit strange that they mentioned as an update for this version 1.3. But, I'm not seeing a whole lot, or I'm not aware of a whole lot of people breaking this. Specifically this battery, or not battery, the VTX compartment down here. So if you have one, please let me know. If you have any other comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.